Nate Silver shouldn't bother me, but he does. But here's where it starts. We no longer talk policy and character in political contests. You're either on the red team or the blue team. And we treat the presidential race like a horse race. Media outlets run the latest polls ad nauseum, so we supposedly know who's ahead or behind every moment until the finish line, which is where the noxious, annoying Nate Silver comes in. Silver made his bones when he correctly predicted the outcomes in 49 of 50 states in the 2008 presidential election. Folks, looking at polling just before presidential elections, an 8th grader could project 45 of the 50 states correctly. A pregnant, blindfolded wildebeest could project 42 out of 50 correctly while eating a rack of baby back ribs. Silver has found gold, fooling us into believing he offers something of great value. He just aggregates all the polling and tells us who's ahead that week or that day or that hour. It all means nothing. Sound and fury signifying bupkis. The guy's a one-trick pony, and the trick is not all that fascinating. He relies on probabilistic and statistical modeling, which are just fancy terms for bullshit. And we are such stupid customers, I'm surprised Silver doesn't monetize his smoke and mirrors act further, selling us data to indicate whether or not the sun will rise in the east or set in the west every day. If I open up my MacBook Air and see more numbers from this hack-and-a-half inhuman horror Nate Silver one more time, I will go gambling mad! Norman Chad. Norman Chad. Norman Chad. Norman Chad. Norman Chad. And welcome to Gambling Mad with Norman Chad. I am Norman Chad. Gambling Mad, as always, brought to you by Fritos, picked fresh off of Central California trees every morning, directly to your retailer every afternoon. And by Fresca. It's refreshing. It's remarkable. It's Fresca. Fritos and Fresca, it's a meal. Coming up today on the show, in our NFL picks, we will be backing the worst team in football. We question the wisdom of Tommy John surgery, and we will have for you our Mount Rushmore of ice cream. But first, John Oliver once did a piece on daily fantasy sports on his Last Week Tonight HBO show that I recently ran across. I love John Oliver. I would marry John Oliver tomorrow if I were 15 years younger and Tony granted me a divorce. But John Oliver weighing in on daily fantasy sports bothered me. It really irked me. He told us that daily fantasy sports is gambling. No shit. He told us that 85% of those who play DFS are losers. No shit. He told us that 90% of the money made on DFS goes to less than 2% of the players. No shit. Mr. Oliver, why don't you stay on your side of the road, which I believe is the left side where you blokes drive in your crumbling empire. DFS is our problem here in the U.S. We should take care of it, John. Leave it to us. Do you see me bugging you about UK stuff? I've got 2 words for you, pal. Buckingham Palace. Okay, whose half-baked, half-assed idea was this monarchy business? You folks have had 1,000 years of kings and queens and princes and princesses and dukes and duchesses. It is embarrassing. Take Queen Elizabeth II. She ruled until her death 2 years ago. The length of her reign spanned nearly 30% of the entire history of the United States. And guess what? How did we become the United States? Because we declared independence from your stinking empire, partly due to the royals and partly due to taxation without representation and partly due to the fact that your food is god-awful. So get out of my face, Sparky, about daily fantasy sports. I thought I handled that pretty darn well. By the way, is John Oliver even in this country legally? All right, well, we'll get to this week's NFL picks in just a moment. But first, I would like to take a moment to sprain my arm by patting myself on the back. You know, I made a baseball season bet this year with my poker buddy, David Tuckman, on the win total for the Kansas City Royals. I took over 73 and a half wins for the season. Now, last year, the Royals' record was 56 wins and 106 losses. This year, the Royals' record was 86 and 76. Not only did I just crush this bet, but take a look at this. Back at the start of the season, a couple of weeks in, I predicted on X that the Royals would finish with an 88 and 74 record. I said 88 and 74. The Royals ended up 86 and 76. That's pretty darn close. And that's why you're with me, good people. Okay, let's turn to my NFL picks against the spread for this week. Last week, I was 3-2. Now for the season, I am 5-5. 5-5 doesn't sound too sexy, but as I tell you again and again, you'll lose less with us on Gambling Mad than with the other huckadoodles. All right, let's get started. Colts at Jaguars. This game smells like week-old mackerel. The Colts have won 2 straight, and the Jaguars are the NFL's worst team. So how are the Jaguars favored? Well, here's the thing. Road teams hate coming to Jacksonville, where Hooters is haute cuisine. Now, I hate betting on bad teams to win, but I think Trevor Lawrence has his best game of the season. Plus, I believe in the bounce theory. Good teams often bounce from good to bad, and then teams often bounce from bad to good, week to week in the NFL. The Jags now, they can only bounce so high, but I think it'll be just enough to get them their first victory. I'm taking the Jaguars -3. Moving on. The Jets versus the Vikings in London. This game smells like week-old lutefisk. The Jets stunk last week. The Vikings have been the NFL's best team. So how come Minnesota is such a small favorite, 2.5 points? Well, as I mentioned, the game is in London. That's a 4,000-mile trip for the Vikings. And ownership is a little cheap. It might involve a connection. Okay, then there's the Aaron Rodgers factor. He was awful last week, so there will be that bounce thing. Plus, you may recall he missed Jets minicamp this year when he left the country. Plus, in the past, he has gone to Peru twice for retreats. So Rodgers likes going overseas. He will love London. Take the Jets and the points. Bills at Texans. Woo! It's going to be a barn burner. This game is going to be close. How close? I ran 5,000 simulations of the game on my Tudor electric football game set, and the average final score was 26-26. That's a tie. If the game is going to end in a tie, think about it, you got to go with the underdog. I learned that at the University of Maryland, where I graduated without honors with an American Studies degree. And we studied America. That doesn't necessarily include Texas, but we also studied the National Football League. I know America. I know the NFL. Take the Texans +1. It is time for our Colander pick of the week. Colander picks of the week are 57% since Victor Littman's bar mitzvah in 1971. Sometimes I'm just going to give you numbers. Numbers never lie, except when they do. Okay, the home team has won 12 of the last 16 games in this rivalry between these two teams. The Raiders have lost 11 of their last 13 games in Denver after a home win. The Broncos are 3-1 against the spread this season. Plus, the Raiders' best offensive player, wide receiver Devontae Adams, has asked for a trade this week. He has not been studying the playbook. He has been studying real estate comps in the Las Vegas area to figure out how much he can get for his home. It's a tough market right now. He's not going to be focused. Take the Broncos minus 2.5 points. Final game of the week, another good one. Cowboys at Steelers. Steelers, a small favorite. Most signs point to the Steelers in this one. Better defense, better running game, fewer injuries. But sometimes signs can be misleading. For instance, when I'm on the highway here over the years in the great United States, I always see that sign that says, "Watch for falling rock." I have never, ever seen any falling rocks, and I drive pretty slowly. Plus, this game is on Sunday Night Football. Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott always loves the primetime lights. In his career, Dak is 12-8 on Sunday nights. Take the Cowboys and the points. And if we have a good week, we're all going to Sizzler on Monday. We now have an election update. Election update. That's pretty high tech. On our election update, Donald Trump is currently selling God Bless the USA Bibles for $59.99. High top gold sneakers for $399. Silver Trump coins for $100. And now Trump watches for up to $100,000. All of that at the same time that he is running for president of these United States. This equals George Washington's record of selling Louis XV style commodes, grandfather clocks, men's wigs, and wooden teeth while running for president in 1788. In other election news, Brian Williams will be shockingly and shamelessly back in the anchor chair hosting an election night special for Amazon's Prime Video. I don't know if I'm more concerned about Brian Williams giving us the news again or Amazon stepping into the news business. You may recall that Williams famously lost his NBC nightly news anchor position after he fabricated stories of his coverage of the Iraqi war in 2003. NBC also investigated the fabulous further and discovered 10 other exaggerations and embellishments in Williams' previous reports. As a result, NBC demoted him from NBC to MSNBC. Really? That would be like a high school principal convicted of murder being reassigned as a biology teacher. Is it me or is it them? It's them. Okay? Brian Williams should have been given the death penalty broadcasting-wise. He should never be on the air again. What is wrong with us? In other election news, speaking of what is wrong with us, Laura Loomer is pursuing the Kamala Harris is not black story. This is just too much for me. I am now pursuing the Laura Loomer is not human story. Just look at her, okay? Look at her. That's Laura Loomer, okay? Does she appear human? So who is Laura Loomer? Loomer, by the way, is spelled L-O-O-O-O-O-O-O-O-M-E-R. Loomer. Loom, as in doom. She ran for Congress twice unsuccessfully. She is now Donald Trump's unofficial online mistress, unofficial #1 Trump cheerleader, and unofficial Twitter conspiracy theorist. She just makes stuff up, which reminds me, I once had a brief relationship with Laura Loomer. We were in a restaurant. The date ended when Loomer asked the waiter why chicken Kiev was on the menu. And then she went into the kitchen looking for Russian and Ukrainian spies. I ducked out and went to Popeyes. Degen's gonna degen. Case number 1. A man in Vietnam dug up a family member's grave to help pay a gambling debt. Okay, this is one of those, I gotta say again, just to let it sink in. A man in Vietnam dug up a family member's grave to help pay a gambling debt. So this 37-year-old fella allegedly took a shovel, went to the gravesite of his uncle, collected part of the remains of his deceased relative, and hid them in nearby foliage. He then contacted his cousin's wife and told her he would return the remains if she paid him $200,000. The man told his cousin not to contact law enforcement. Well, she contacted law enforcement, and the man was arrested on charges of extortion and grave desecration. If found guilty, the man could face up to 27 years in prison. Gambling Mad reached out to DraftKings and FanDuel for comment just in case he was a customer. No word yet from those two companies. DGen's gonna DGen, case number 2. Sean Diddy Combs was indicted in New York City for sex trafficking, racketeering, and transportation to engage in prostitution. The indictment stated that Diddy hosted freak-offs described as elaborate sex performances, and he kept 1,000 bottles of baby oil in his homes. I like baby oil too. But 1,000 bottles? Diddy's lawyer, Mark Anifilo, said that Diddy has a big house and buys in bulk from Costco. Okay, let's stop right there. Okay, I am a veteran, frequent Costco customer. Executive card. My home is a Kirkland signature product wonderland. I buy Kirkland Greek yogurt and basil pesto and AA batteries and albacore solid white tuna and ultra clean laundry detergent and French vodka and paper towels and Parmesan Reggiano and mattresses and organic maple syrup and dishwasher pods and, of course, Kirkland rotisserie chicken. But I have never seen a bottle of baby oil in any Costco aisle. This is a bad start for Diddy's defense. DGen's gonna DGen. Moving on, there's a new, largely overlooked border problem that is massive and maddening. Let's go to our national weather map to break it down for you. We have a border alert. A border crisis is brewing, and it's not what you think. Mexicans, Venezuelans, and Haitians, to avoid added border control on our southern border, are now taking a Carnival cruise ship line all the way up to New Brunswick, then a Greyhound bus from Fredericton direct to Windsor, Ontario. Then they will swim into Detroit. The northern border is being overwhelmed. It's incredible. Venezuelans, Mexicans, and Haitians. Meanwhile, another update on our climate change situation. It is going to be hot again in Arizona. 2 o'clock this Sunday afternoon, 151 degrees. You can fry an egg on the sidewalk. 151 in Phoenix. I'm Norman Chad with your weekend weather. Get updates for me all weekend. Traffic and weather on the 5s. Time now for our Mount Rushmore of ice cream. And I'm talking national ice cream shops, so my apologies to many of the awesome Midwestern ice cream joints that are so good. We start with Ben and Jerry's. I'm not a Ben fan or a Jerry fan, but I am a Ben and Jerry's fan. If I pass a Ben and Jerry's and I'm on my way to dinner, I will still stop in right there and then for a scoop of New York Super Fudge Chunk. Next, Cold Stone Creamery, edging out Marble Slab Creamery for the creamery spot. You know, the first 10 years it was around, Cold Stone made its ice cream on a warm stone. This was a mistake. It kept melting. The founders smartly switched to a cold stone, and voila! Perfection. Next, Dairy Queen. I love soft serve, and I love me some DQ chocolate anywhere, anytime, any day of the week. Now, some Dairy Queens only serve vanilla. That is a mortal misstep, and I won't have it. Then there are those of you, you know who you are, who go to DQ and actually order, say, a backyard bacon ranch steak burger. I don't know what to tell you. You're on your own and you are helpless. Finally, Baskin Robbins. This is a sentimental choice. The original 31 flavors. A different flavor for every day of the week, except the months that have 30 in friggin' February. 31 flavors. What a concept. Sure, the ice cream isn't as good as elsewhere, and a lot of BR locales are pretty well worn, but at least they charge less than everyone else. Speaking of which, since when did 2 scoops of ice cream become a budget buster? So there you have it. And yes, I left Rita's and Jenny's off the list. It's not a gender thing. I just think they're both a bit overpriced and a bit overrated. Ben & Jerry's, Cold Stone Creamery, Dairy Queen, and Baskin Robbins, that is your Mount Rushmore of ice cream shops. What? You disagree? I don't give a damn what you think! Before we wrap up, I'm going to say this one time and one time only. If Tommy John surgery is so great, how come you've got to get it twice? This is a procedure that saves MLB pitchers' careers. Well, Dodgers superstar Shohei Ohtani underwent the acclaimed elbow surgery in 2018 and then again in 2023. His Dodgers teammate Walker Buehler also has had 2 Tommy Johns. Now, I have limited medical training, but I can explain the procedure to our audience. Okay, they replace a damaged ulnar collateral ligament in your throwing elbow. I'm left-handed. They replace this ligament by grafting a tendon from the wrist of your non-throwing arm. Now, wrist tendons are not that important. Believe it or not, some people don't even have them. Take my top 2 production people, Rick and Bree. Neither has a wrist tendon. Neither one knows it. When you undergo a second Tommy John surgery, they call it a Tommy John revision. Now, that recalls for me that I had LASIK eye surgery 25 years ago. It created dry eye, and it did not give me 20/20 vision. So the medical people, they huddled up, and they decided to do it again, and they called it an enhancement. Yes, an enhancement, like a Tommy John revision. After the second procedure or enhancement, I still had dry eye, and I still didn't have 20/20 vision. Thus, I still have these eyeglasses from Kirkland. Anyway, I have seen the light, Shohei Ohtani. Before they sell you on a third Tommy John procedure, call me. I will fix your elbow without surgery. That will do it for another edition of Gambling Mad with Norm and Chad. Hope to see you again soon. And remember, if you're going to roll the dice, make sure they're loaded.
Gambling Mad with Norm Chad is written by Norm Chad and ghostwritten by Norm Chad. Executive producer John Scheinberg, Rick Barrio-Dill, and produced by Norm Chad and Rick Barrio-Dill. Associate producer is Bree Coury. And on editing, Asher Friedberg. Audio, video, engineering, and studio facilities provided by 360 Pod Studios, Beverly Hills, and Slap Studios, LA. If you want to complain to Norm about anything, make sure to reach out at Gambling Mad Show, anywhere you get your socials, and at Gambling Mad with Norm Chad on YouTube. And if you really want to get at him, send a message to info@slapstudiosla.com.